My boyfriend chooses to spend our special time with his best friend instead, seeming to forget my feelings. I feel like I'm the last option, and I can't help but feel like she gets the boyfriend he used to be with me. Will our relationship survive this jealousy storm? This has been an ongoing issue for the past 8 to 10 months. In our previous relationship, we were essentially best friends for 4 years. We always engaged in enjoyable activities together, and I would say we both invested in each other equally. He was always asking me to do things or spend time together. He loved being around me, and I genuinely felt secure in that because it was crystal clear and consistent. He stood up for me, made sure I was comfortable, and was always happiest to see me. This was the perfect recipe for feeling secure in our relationship. So I was secure. I know how that feels and looks. I do not intend to delve into all the positive aspects throughout this post, as I want to address the issue at hand, but it is important to state that there are very good reasons we find ourselves in this situation. To summarize, my boyfriend has not been meeting my needs regarding bonding time together, yet he can go out with his gay best friend. They are now doing something I asked him to do months ago, which has caused me to feel a breaking point with jealousy. I am starting to think he may care more about their relationship than ours. I am unsure whether I need more therapy or simply a stronger backbone, as I struggle to trust myself and my feelings and question whether I am overreacting. Please note that I am not seeking a breakup advice. This is clearly about seeking insight, so it may not have sunny vibes. However, I do not want this to be a point of contention that jeopardizes our relationship, as there is so much I value about it. Recently, he has made unexpected changes to make me happier, feel more supported and loved. He is always willing to help in almost everything. Unfortunately, this situation has evolved into a big bad for us, and I genuinely want to manage it rather than feeling so dissatisfied. At the moment, we do not go out unless I repeatedly suggest it and make plans. He can get blackout drunk with his best friend, yet he avoids going out drinking with me, stating that he feels anxious about looking after me or getting me home. I have never caused any problems when drunk, neither for him nor for friends. I have previously complained about his whiskey-related issues, but I don't think that has been overly aggressive. When I mention non-drinking activities or dates, he responds positively, but does not take action to make it happen unless I insist that it is a problem. He does not invest any effort in our bonding or going out meaningfully. His friendship with her has become a point of contention, and I will explain why this has built up over time. I truly believe she is a nice person. I do not think she is doing anything inappropriate or offensive. She has been kind. I say this because he genuinely believes I dislike her, which is simply not true. I resent how easily he seems to get along with her, and I have explained this countless times, which is why I am seeking your input. Honestly, I do not think she is fond of me based on various interactions, but I do not dislike her. I just feel hurt and, to be honest, awkward. She is single but is not interested in men, so I do not believe there are any inappropriate affairs taking place. I do not feel uncomfortable or insecure about his other friends, who are of similar age, almost all women and straight. Thus, you would think if my discomfort stemmed from being around women, I would be concerned about those relationships as well. Moreover, I know definitively that he is loyal and would never engage in such behavior. He would leave the relationship outright before betraying it. My issues do not stem from concerns about infidelity. They go out together most weekends, claiming it is barely once a month, but in recent weeks he has seen her alone nearly every weekend. If I want to spend a weekend with him, I must schedule it in advance and request it. He never suggested himself. We have one weeknight set aside for us each week unless I specifically request otherwise. I have asked multiple times for additional days and regular weekends together over the past year, but it rarely happens consistently. He agrees but then complains about being exhausted or burnt out more than before, or he says, fine, we'll do those days. I end up feeling guilty for asking so much of him, especially since he struggles with his mental health, and I genuinely do not want to exacerbate that. However, he does not make effort to arrange outings or propose plans unless I bring it up as an issue. You can imagine how difficult it is for me to witness the ease of him spending time with her when I feel I have to negotiate to spend time together with him. About 3 years ago, we experienced a break in our relationship due to mental health issues that we had not addressed on either side. Neither of us behaved fairly, and we both acknowledged that we let the relationship falter. We have since dedicated time to working on ourselves, and throughout that break, we maintained contact and expressed mutual feelings of missing one another, but it was tough, I won't lie. During our time apart, he and she became good friends through another mutual acquaintance. They have known each other for about 2 years. They planned to attend an event that I wanted to go to with him prior to our breakup. Of course, I cannot hold it against him because we were not together when the planning occurred. He was clear that it was her suggestion and that she organized everything. This event was something we would typically enjoy together, a special birthday or anniversary affair involving a nice dinner, cocktails, and a show. but I know that some individuals do attend such events as just friends. After the event, he admitted to her that he felt guilty because he knew how much I had wanted to go with him, which I appreciated. Once the event had passed, I expressed my desire to save significant events for just the two of us, as they mean a lot to me. He seemed to understand at the time but reassured me that he did not view it as exclusively romantic. I am not sure if I am overreacting regarding that request, but it is how I felt, and I wanted to be honest about it because it made me uncomfortable. There were no issues at this point. Shortly thereafter, another event was announced, similar but with a new theme, so I asked him if we could attend that one together instead. I wanted to share that experience with him because it means a great deal to me. He agreed. Great, we were moving in a positive direction. A few months later, I suggested meeting this new friend since she seems important to him, and I wanted to become friendly with her, so a night out was arranged. However, things felt awkward. As soon as I arrived, he sat next to her instead of me, and they talked about people I did not know. I attempted to engage, but I was unsure what to say because I was not familiar with the inside jokes and references they were sharing. They would occasionally turn to me and ask questions, appearing pleased I was there, but then the conversation would return to their private discussions. He sat across from me next to her, turned toward her, and I felt like a third wheel, awkwardly resisting the impulse to grab my phone, which was the last thing I expected after he had reassured me before our meeting. It was embarrassing, and I felt uncomfortable as I had never experienced such awkwardness before. I voiced my feelings of being a third wheel when she went to the bathroom, and he apologized, stating he did not want that and would make an effort. Unfortunately, the feeling persisted throughout the evening. When we moved to another bar, she introduced everyone except me to the bartender, and neither he nor she corrected it. I tried to convince myself that it was simply due to drinking and my anxieties, but my feelings of being a third wheel left me feeling uneasy, and I began to question whether I was behaving poorly. Eventually, she did sit next to me, and we made some lighthearted teasing of my boyfriend together. I thought, thank goodness it was just my anxiety, this is lovely. We then went to the bathroom, and I hoped we could catch up privately, but it felt like she was not keen to engage in conversation. I became confused because things had seemed to improve, and I had hoped for a little one-on-one interaction. His other female friends have always been welcoming and made efforts to connect with me, so I found this vibe unsettling. Towards the end of the night, things felt more relaxed, and we were joking and being silly together. I thought I was beginning to get along with her and was relieved that the awkwardness had seemingly dissipated. It was just my nerves. However, as we left the bar to head home, I accidentally cut myself and began bleeding. It was nothing severe, but the injury looked unsightly and limited my ability to walk comfortably. It happened just as we were leaving the bar, so no one was aware until we emerged outside. He and she walked ahead of me, linked arms, and appeared to forget I was there entirely, which stung. I felt a pit in my stomach seeing him interact so happily with someone else when he had always been excited about being with me. I acknowledge that this may sound petty, but I hope you can understand my perspective. He eventually turned around and noticed I was trailing behind, and he came over to me. I pushed him away, feeling slightly tipsy and upset at the sight. She turned to look but then continued walking ahead of us. We then sat on benches waiting for food, and as she saw my injury, I made a lighthearted comment about how it was unfortunate. She suggested going home, but he simply said, "Yeah, let's walk." She basically told him to not be abusive and order a cab for me. He immediately became cold toward me, booked an Uber silently while complaining about the cost, and she left, clearly upset with me. Once we returned home, I tried to discuss what was wrong, and he grew upset, pushing me away with tears in his eyes. He exclaimed that he had spoken so highly of me that I seemed like an angel, yet I made him look like a fool in front of his friends, stating he had no idea I had hurt myself. He raised his voice, making it challenging to handle while I was still standing there, feeling dirty and upset. It was a terrible experience. The next day he apologized and we agreed that it must have been the alcohol, but it profoundly affected me. I had never witnessed him react that way toward me, especially not with tears over another person's opinion. Unfortunately, that night has lingered in my mind, and I desperately want to forget it, as it has left me feeling so strange all the time. I brought up my feelings to him while sober and expressed how I felt like a third wheel, emphasizing that I wanted to change things. Overall, it was a difficult experience for me and I was quite hurt. He seemed receptive, but when I brought it up again later, he became aggravated. I understand why, it had been discussed multiple times. I realize I should have addressed it once and concisely, but after our first conversation, I felt compelled to keep talking about it. I can appreciate that it wasn't an enjoyable subject for him, but I needed to confirm that my feelings were understood and ensure I did not have to endure that awkwardness again. Our conversations became defensive on his part, and he rolled his eyes when I tried explaining how it felt to be a third wheel. I suggested that he could sit between us or next to me to alleviate discomfort, but it seemed unconstructive to him. I genuinely wanted him to understand so that it would not happen again, as the situation was unpleasant, especially considering how harsh he had become at the end of the night due to her impression of him. He is upset that I am still bringing it up, believing it had been resolved. Now that it has become an issue, and it went so poorly, he stated he does not feel comfortable taking me out with her for a considerable time. New Year's or his birthday approached months later, and I anticipated that we would do something together, as we had historically done in every previous year of our relationship. I had taken him on trips or into the city before. It wasn't unreasonable to expect that again. He informed me that he did not want to celebrate his birthday, nor did he wish to spend New Year's Eve with me. Instead, he wanted to go out drinking with just his friends. Unfortunately, he does not have a large group, so what he meant was that he intended to go out with her. I asked him to clarify at the time. I resisted, as we had not celebrated any of the holidays together up to that point, and we hadn't told our families we were back together. He was not ready. I wanted to be involved in this aspect of his life. He went ahead with his plans and I attended, but I felt anxious that he would be upset with me again or that I would feel uncomfortable, so I got blackout drunk and could not remember much of anything. Weeks later, he told me that he resented me for pushing him to celebrate with me, especially since it did not resolve my feelings or insecurities regarding his friendship, which I had hoped it would an experience that would overshadow the discomfort. Consequently, I am now feeling completely insecure about the entire situation. It feels odd. I feel that a significant aspect of our dynamic, which I deeply valued, the best friend connection with fun, ease, and security in our regard for one another, has been supplanted by someone else. We are not doing anything together, no dates, big or small. He becomes defensive when I mention her and does not listen when I explain what has hurt me, dismissing it as me disliking his friends or claiming he loves me but will not cut off his friends for me. I do not believe my requests are unreasonable. I just do not want to feel like I am always picked second. I have stated that I wish she had made more effort to engage with me, similar to his other female friends, who chat and ask me questions to make me feel comfortable. It seemed she was not invested in getting to know me, and I doubted whether she even liked me to a degree, which escalated my discomfort. He has said that I cannot expect it not to be awkward since she is a new person, and that not all women become friends with each other, which is valid. However, he seems to use that justification to assert that my problem lies with her rather than acknowledging it the way I have framed it, which is merely a response to the dynamics at play, even if they are influenced by my feelings. I genuinely believe that my discomfort regarding her is rooted in how he has been silent about it, and I could have handled it better if everything else in our relationship were going smoothly. I would feel secure enough not to care if we took time to warm up to each other or overthink the vibe. I would understand this situation better if he were cheating or acting inappropriately. While it would still be an unpleasant experience, it would make more sense. However, the months following our meeting have seen her become a taboo topic in our relationship, as I react negatively when she is mentioned and nothing has changed regarding our time together. Each time I have attempted to address it, I have reiterated my request for more time together, but he perceives it as me pushing for something when nothing changes because he is clearly resistant to it, even though he professes he desires these nice things with me. He is lovely, kind, and considerate in every other respect, and I have observed substantial growth in him over just this past year, but I also recognize that it is a lengthy process. I am trying to remain patient as we take things slow and rebuild after our break, but I feel I am not asking for anything unreasonable, just quality time, dates, and healthy bonding that any normal relationship entails. He has acknowledged that it is unfair, appreciates how good I am, given that he has many female friends, and I have expressed my concerns about being overly jealous. He has assured me that he does not believe I am a jealous girlfriend, which is reassuring to hear in such circumstances. He understands that not enough effort is being made on his part in our relationship, and he appreciates how understanding I have been, making me feel like I can exercise patience. He seems aware that it takes time, especially given several mental health challenges, so I do not want to be angry, and honestly, I often feel guilt about being upset. He claims to understand my feelings during our conversations, and he genuinely seems to get it in those moments. However, he has started avoiding discussions about her. He hides his texts from me and does not disclose if he is making plans with her or any updates. He explains that it is due to my reactions when I am clearly uncomfortable and unhappy, so he opts not to inform me unless I ask. I recognize that I have become insecure and question my worth in this relationship, which is distressing. But his efforts to conceal information make it seem like there is more at play here. I genuinely do not know whether I am being unreasonable in this situation, and whether I am simply feeling upset and selfish due to insecurity, as technically nothing inappropriate has occurred. He is not cheating, he adheres to our routines and makes himself available when I ask. Whenever I plan something with him, he adjusts his schedule accordingly. I feel trapped, having never been this insecure in my life, particularly with him. Fast forward a couple of months, she has gone away for an extended period, and he cracks jokes that it will be great for us for a few months, which comes off lightly. Before she leaves, she asks him if he is available for certain dates to celebrate a birthday surprise. He mentions this to me, and I realize that the dates align perfectly with the second event that I insisted we attend together. I begin to panic because if he decides to go with her instead of me, I will be deeply hurt and upset. I have been clear and excited about us going, and the thought of having another issue related to this conflict makes me uncomfortable. I feel like a crazy, jealous girlfriend, which is frustrating because it is not my character. I try to engage him in a conversation to express my displeasure at the prospect of him choosing to go with someone else over me, especially when we had agreed to do it together. I believe he could simply state, "By the way, I am going to this with my girlfriend," since the event is many months away and not yet set in stone. I communicate that it is difficult for me since it is something I have anticipated for quite some time, emphasizing the need for boundaries. Unfortunately, it is not a constructive conversation. He feels I am telling him what to do. He was already stressed that day, and my request did not go over well. He indicates that it will not be a significant issue. She got him a plant or something trivial, and they will just go out rather than attend a big event, even though I told him it would have been special to me, which I felt reasonable. I realized I might have been overreacting to the situation, trying to pinpoint boundaries where none should exist. Although I am still fried by the situation, I attempt to put it out of my mind because he reassured me, albeit while being annoyed. Time passes and we were supposed to go away for his birthday, but he asks if we could skip it, stating it feels overwhelming. It is his birthday, so it is his choice, but he laments that it has been so long since his birthday and the time has passed, although he had previously expressed a desire to wait for warmer weather to arrange a getaway. We enjoyed a lovely trip for my birthday, so this is not rooted in any negative or unknown experiences. I express my disappointment, as it feels like he is distancing himself and refusing to do things together. I want to celebrate him and show him affection, but I refrain from pressing the matter. He insists it is his birthday. He should not have to do anything simply because I want him to, particularly if he does not enjoy it. My concern is that something special is being sidelined. Now that his friend has returned from her trip, they have gone out regularly, at least every other weekend. But when she was away, he consistently told me he lacked the time, energy, and funds, which made essentially all outings contingent upon my prompting. One weekend I arranged in advance was the only time we spent together recently. I know she is the one making plans. He is not suddenly a superb planner, but it is hard for me to accept. Therefore, I feel upset when they spend time together, as it seems so much easier for him to go out with her than with me. He explains it as him not being worried or caring, that he can detach and leave her when he wants, but he is anxious about going out with me concerning my safety and comfort. One evening he went out without telling me when he had stated he would be home. When I called after his text, he did not respond, and at first he claimed he could not talk, so I probed further. Then he said he was simply out, and I realized he was with her again. He did not tell me until I directly asked him, later admitting that it was very last minute. He acknowledged he does not tell me unless I inquire because he wants to avoid upsetting me. While he claims he would not lie to me, it feels like an omission. In the lead-up to the event, he had arranged nothing with me despite my having discussed it since last year. When he spoke to me about boundaries, he emphasized that he did not even like the event theme. Therefore, I reluctantly accepted that I would miss it or would need to attend alone, not wanting to experience further conflict. However, she inadvertently let it slip that she is taking him to the event for his birthday. Naturally, I feel hurt just as I predicted. I think, maybe after all this, he will acknowledge my feelings because this is precisely the situation that makes me unhappy. I feel it wouldn't cost him anything to respect my partner's feelings by reevaluating the plans. He argues that he thinks it should remain unchanged because it still does not impact my friendship with her. He does not see it as special, believing it is unnecessary to break up with her over this. When I told him I would be upset since I had anticipated going with him, he dismissed my concerns, indicating it was my job to bring it up at the time and not his. He believes it was me telling him what to do rather than agreeing about any boundaries. I genuinely believe that if a friend said to another, "I am sorry, but my partner already promised to go to this event," that the friend would not take offense. They may feel disappointed, but in the end, that is their partner, and strong friendships hinge on prioritizing romantic connections. If those friends were honest and compassionate, it would not risk the friendship, especially since it signifies care from one friend to another. We've discussed our reservations about moving forward. He thinks my displeasure regarding his reluctance to go out for drinks with me stems from me disregarding his mental health. He gets anxious about looking after me, feeling he might react in ways I wouldn't approve. He asserts that he can be around her and most friends only if under the influence of alcohol. He does not consider himself close to her, as they do not discuss anything significant, and he worries I will abandon him one day if I realize he is unworthy. He terms this anxiety as his imposter syndrome. Recently, he has made more time for me and has proactively planned an outing for next month. It was something I had mentioned very recently, so it feels somewhat odd to me. Regardless, I express gratitude rather than cutting off my nose to spite my face. He voiced that he does not believe I am thankful for such gestures, which astonished me. I articulated everything that hurt, not solely this issue, but also matters affecting our time together, trust, his avoidance, the need for family involvement, and how it all culminated in a situation I could no longer manage. I recognized that I had contributed significantly to our distress as well, and we discussed everything. He seemed to comprehend, acknowledging that it leaves a terrible impression on me. I expressed that I felt like a jealous, unreasonable girlfriend, but he contested this claim, insisting I have not acted that way, which confused me. However, he did reassure me that it was meant sincerely. I told him I missed him as my best friend, which made him sad as he felt we were best friends in all critical areas. But he also expressed that some of the friendship elements I missed stemmed from codependency. I am not sure I agree with this assessment, as codependency is more associated with lacking independence and boundaries, rather than not being each other's favorites and having fun together. Ultimately, I do not want to break up with him. I realize this can sound negative, but you are hearing this perspective because it reflects my ongoing feelings. We have discussed a few issues within our relationship, but those that exist do require work. Many would argue I should have remained broken up with him, but I disagree. Plenty of people repair relationships, and many people deal with insecurities that need to be addressed within a relationship. Working on issues and allowing forgiveness is healthy and is the foundation of many long and blissful marriages. I believe he is wonderful, kind, funny, loyal, thoughtful, generous, practical, fascinating, and loving, and I know he loves me as he demonstrates it in various ways. I simply miss the effort he once demonstrated toward us and the sense of safety and security I felt. I recognize that things will not return to how they were, nor would I want that since we had issues to resolve. I do not need to fulfill every aspect of his life. I am glad he has his friends and family, and I support him in cultivating those relationships as they invest in him. Still, I do not want to have to fight for priority in his life. We have both worked diligently to reach a good place in our relationship, to be together and build our bond, and I have no desire to throw that away. I believe most relationships can be salvaged through empathy, kindness, boundaries, and honesty, outside of severe betrayals or abuse. I understand that love alone is not sufficient when facing challenges. I am uncertain about how to aid this situation without suppressing my feelings, and I feel I should ignore everything and push forward rather than introduce additional stress into our lives. However, if a friend expressed such sentiments to me, I would see it as troubling. My motivation for posting here is that I do not know whether I am being unfair to myself or selfish because both scenarios feel probable, depending on how I try to frame this. I have sought personal advice, but it often carries bias, even when the intention is neutral. My self-esteem has been an issue I am working on, which affects my ability to be open and honest when I am unsettled by something, as I often convince myself it is solely my overthinking. However, I have tried to be diligent about addressing this situation, and now I am uncertain whether I have taken it too far as a problem. I recognize there is much to work on for both of us to improve. He has taken steps towards progress, and I trust he intends to move forward. However, I find myself feeling uncomfortable about this friendship and how it affects us. I want to manage this well as it has become a significant issue for far too long. I miss our friendship, the absence of concern about my place in his life, and truthfully, I miss being his favorite. I have a therapist, but we are on a break at the moment for a few months. I know that many insecurities have arisen that I need to address independently, and I will do so. That's one part of the solution, but what about the rest? I have been writing this post over a couple of days, so this serves as an update before I provide more after a future discussion. We ended up talking, and I suggested that we first experience it together as he requested solutions that did not involve canceling with her. However, when we did go, it felt awkward as though I had forced him to be there with me, which diminished the experience's significance for me. He expressed that he was not feeling well and appeared anxious, so I cannot blame him for that. While we were out, he remarked that he likes to think I appreciate these things, but my gut says otherwise. When I attempted to discuss this, he asked if we could just focus on having fun that day. They went out later, and I wanted to call him to check in before they left, but he did not answer. An hour later, he texted to apologize for missing my call, but I felt uneasy because I was already distressed about the day proceeding as planned. I worried that if I responded, he would sense my feelings and it would ruin his day with his friend. I delayed responding until later that evening, and he then expressed annoyance that I had not communicated with him throughout the day. I explained my reasoning, but he insisted that I should have informed him of my need for space, claiming that I robbed him of the chance to comfort me. If he was genuinely concerned, he could have called me. I would have reached out if he did not respond, thinking I owed him reassurance after experiencing discomfort. He revealed that she herself admitted it was an overstep, stating that someone else had mentioned it to her. My boyfriend said he had voiced that it felt excessive and acknowledged he had a girlfriend now. Although she seemed on board, the fact that they both recognized it was inappropriate yet proceeded anyway makes it worse because it indicates they had full knowledge of the situation. Now I believe she genuinely does not care. When I voiced my concerns, he stated, "You never liked her anyway and you were never going to be friends," which stung because it is simply not true. It demonstrates to me that he still has not listened and continues to blame me for being uncomfortable and unsupported. He thought this had been resolved and that I would feel better after they went out since, in his mind, all bases had been covered. He does not understand that I do not feel that way, primarily because I feel I had to fight for my right to be uncomfortable and that my partner did not value our relationship enough to prioritize it. He was troubled by my perceived miscommunication within that dynamic. We had an honest discussion, and I expressed that it feels as though she is a second girlfriend, but he interpreted that to mean that I did not want him enjoying life with his friends. I told him that to avoid this in the future, we should check in with each other before confirming plans. He took that as suggesting he needed my permission to go to the pub with his friends. He brought up another female friend with whom he had gone on trips and festivals. I had to explain that when I initially met that friend, she made significant efforts to engage with just me, and he was also making a considerable effort to facilitate our friendships. Thus, there would naturally be a difference between these two friends, as I had entirely different experiences. I stated that I would not be comfortable if he went to trips or festivals with the new friend because this has demonstrated that neither party has made any effort to set boundaries or consider me. If I am being codependent for wanting him to prioritize me and to also want him to enjoy me most, then please let me know. I am not arguing against the importance of friendships. They are significant and I want that to continue for him, but it feels like he has allocated his energies elsewhere. I feel he has pulled less boyfriend energy toward me, as I receive the deeper emotional connection, vulnerability, and intimacy, while he seems to reserve the joyful, fun experiences for her. I fear he has risked our relationship, but he asserts this is not the case. Apologies for the lengthiness of this post. I felt that omitting details would make either him seem cruel or me appear irrational. I tried to include enough context and details to provide clarity, and I appreciate you taking the time to read through all this. Story 2. In love with my best friend, he supports me through my toxic past. "You're my emotional type," he said as I confessed my feelings, yet rejected me, claiming, "My love for you will always be platonic." Now I'm desperate to move on without pushing him away. Can I? This will likely turn out to be a lengthy and quite disorganized story. I will probably delete this soon, but I need assistance. I feel it is essential to provide sufficient background information to explain why I cannot view the situation in black and white terms and to convey my confusion. I am a 29-year-old male in love with my best friend who is 23 years old and also male. We met at university, where I am one of the older students in the class. Initially, I believed he was around my age, as he was physically larger and sported a lovely mustache. Additionally, his serious and reserved demeanor contributed to the impression that he was older. Our friendship began in a typical manner. We participated in similar classes because we were in the same program. One day, we discovered that we were also neighbors, which led to us spending time together at my place or his weekly. I found him attractive right from the start, but I was not considering him in that way then because I was involved in a situationship with a closeted man at the time. My focus was primarily on that relationship, though I was curious if he liked men as well. He was difficult to read and slow to open up, but certain actions made me wonder. For instance, while we were watching movies, he would gradually lean against me. One day, he invited me to help him choose a perfume. At the store, the staff provided us with 2 paper strips to test various fragrances, but instead, he sprayed the scent on his wrist and held out his hand for me to smell it. I liked it and he ended up purchasing it. The guy I was involved with at that time was also a classmate and a close friend, and we attended all the first-year student events together. I was consistently with him while my friend was with his own group of friends. At times, I wondered if I sensed a certain possessiveness from him toward me. However, there were moments I considered that it might just be wishful thinking, but my instincts suggested otherwise. For example, while I was sitting and conversing with my situationship, my friend would occasionally leave his group to check on me. He would ask, "I am going to the store. Do you need anything?" Or, "I am going home. Would you like to join me or will you come later with him?" Or, "Do you want to go to the sauna?" "I will go if you do too. I do not want to go alone." On one occasion, while I was sitting on a couch with my situationship, whom I will refer to as V from now on, he left his group and sat down next to me. He seemed about to put his hand behind me but then stopped, tucking his hands in instead. Situations like this made me ponder if he might also have feelings for men. He knew I was gay already by posing indirect questions. However, he skillfully provided vague responses to avoid answering my inquiries. For example, while watching a movie, he asked me, "Do you find that actor attractive?" I replied, "Not really my type." "Why do you?" He said, "I like the Scottish accent. I think it's funny," thus evading my actual question. Now I should provide a bit of context regarding my situationship with V as it is pertinent to my feelings. That relationship was extremely toxic. V was manipulative, narcissistic, selfish, a habitual liar, and generally a terrible person. He initially told me he was straight, but once he learned I was gay, he started flirting with me incessantly, giving me much attention as if he were my boyfriend. One day, he claimed he was actually bisexual. He maintained that narrative for about 2 months, only to eventually flip and say he was joking and that he was indeed straight. This relationship was characterized by hot and cold dynamics, constant push and pull, which consistently left me anxious. I went out of my way to spend time with him while he did as he pleased. I eventually realized he was simply using me to bolster his ego because he enjoyed the attention. Ultimately, I found the only viable option was to cut him out of my life. And by that point, I was mentally shattered, feeling suicidal and extremely distrustful and insecure. These feelings, which were not new to me, were definitely exacerbated by my experiences with V. He effectively destroyed whatever sense of self-worth I had left. On the day I severed ties with V, I desperately needed someone to talk to, otherwise I felt I was going to suffocate. I texted my best friend, "Do you have time for me? I really need to talk." He quickly replied, "Of course, come over." When I arrived at his place, I disclosed everything, V's emotional abuse, manipulation, and lies. It was the first time my friend understood the true nature of my relationship with V. Before that, he believed we were merely very close friends. I explained to him how V consistently lied about his sexuality, alternating between claiming to be gay or bisexual one moment and then saying he was joking the next. As I was sharing all this, my friend suddenly said, "Forget this, I am bisexual." I was somewhat taken aback as I did not expect him to come out to me. I responded with, "Oh," he explained, "yes, but I know you want true love, a real long-term relationship. I am not at that phase of my life yet, so I want to set a boundary." After this declaration, he fell silent and told me to continue. I shared my feelings and he listened attentively, offering support. He reassured me that if I needed someone to talk to in the future, he would always be there for me, and he has indeed kept that promise. To this day, I wonder why he chose that moment to come out to me, as it seemed like an impulsive decision. In the following days, weeks, and months, he provided a listening ear while I cried about my experiences with V, comforting and soothing me, consistently reiterating, "I am always here." Thanks to him, I believe I ultimately managed to move on from V completely. Otherwise, I am uncertain how I would have coped. We went on a trip to a neighboring country for a few days, and it was a delightful experience. One night, we visited a bar for cocktails. After chatting and drinking for a while, I began flirting with him, to which he awkwardly responded, "You are not really my type." That stung, of course, and I fell silent for a moment. He asked, "Did I hurt you?" I replied, "No, it is all right." He said, "You know, when you become friends with someone, you think that if they wanted to take it further, I would be interested. I just never felt that with you. There was never any spark." I reflected on all the moments when I thought he might have been interested in me and questioned whether I had misunderstood those signals. To provide some context, he is bisexual but has never been intimate with anyone. He had kissed one girl but nothing else. He mentioned having a crush on a childhood male friend back in his home country, but he never acted on it. He is not on any dating apps either. Once he confided that he had insecurities about his attractiveness and a fear of putting his face on dating apps. I could not understand why, as I find him very handsome. He stated that he was not ready for a long-term relationship at this point in his life. He was only interested in a casual sexual relationship. Several individuals at the university, both men and women, had flirted with him, but whenever he realized they were seeking something romantic and long-term, he distanced himself. He asserted, "I am not a romantic." Yet despite him stating that I was not his type, I found myself falling for him regardless. His calm and steady presence provided a kind of comfort I cannot recall ever experiencing before. However, these developing feelings unearthed all the trauma left by V not long ago. I became paranoid, obsessive, terrified, distrustful, and extremely insecure. Any feeling of neglect or being ignored by him, always unintentional, caused me to withdraw, worrying that history would repeat itself. Even though my friend never misled me or gave me false hope, I imagined the worst-case scenarios in my mind and drove myself to madness. Thus, the comfort I initially felt was soon replaced by anxiety, insecurity, and fear. I found myself scrutinizing everything he did, searching for signs of when he would abandon me too, overthinking each situation to an extreme degree. After one of these mental breakdowns, I concluded that I might not be suited for such a close friendship at that moment and considered the possibility of distancing myself. It did not seem fair for him to endure my unpredictability, which was not his fault, and I doubted my ability to manage my emotions. One evening, I invited him over and attempted to explain my feelings. I was a mess at the time, and he observed it. He stated, "I value our friendship very highly. I appreciate how close we are. I want us to remain close friends not only when you are at your best but also when you are at your worst." I confessed that I was struggling to trust him and feel secure in our relationship. He replied, "Then we will take it one step at a time and build that trust." I wish I could say that after such beautiful words from him, I instantly felt secure in our friendship and everything was fine, but that was not the case. The following months were a nightmare and it was all due to my actions. I experienced almost daily breakdowns, lashing out at him and doubting everything he said and did. I cannot fathom how exhausting that must have been for him to manage daily. Nevertheless, he steadfastly stood by my side, reassuring me each time. Whenever I expressed that if he performed specific actions, it would alleviate some of my fears, he endeavored to do so. Each time I made a request, I concluded with a "sorry, you do not have to do this." I was also afraid he might become angry with me, yet he would say, "You do not need to apologize." I would not follow through if I did not want to. I did not make it easy for him. I often exhibited toxic behavior. I think I was attempting to push him away before he could leave me. I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop and continually questioned why he had not left yet. I wondered if I was genuinely worth all the trouble. He had other friends who were mentally stable and did not put him through this exhausting gauntlet daily. I once asked him, "Wouldn't it be easier for you to just let go?" He responded, "It is a lot more painful for me that way and for you." After another one of my breakdowns, I asked him, "Are you angry?" He replied, "I am not angry. I am just tired and sad. You are oscillating between extremes. I simply want you to be stable and safe. I have seen glimpses of you being happy, comfortable, and dare I say safe. But then those feelings slip back into sadness and anxiety and it hurts." The more he expressed sentiments like that, the deeper I fell for him. I could not help it. Throughout my life, I do not believe I have encountered another person who witnessed the worst in me and exclaimed, "I am even more certain of you now. So if you are trying to make me reconsider our friendship, it will not work. I am not going anywhere." One day I confessed that I was in love with him, to which he replied, "My feelings for you will always be platonic." He then asked me to give him an hour to respond properly. That night I went to bed early, devastated despite having anticipated that response. An hour later my phone vibrated continuously with his messages for an entire hour. The next morning when I opened them, I found long, heartfelt responses. I recognized how much he had opened up in those messages, even though it was not what I had hoped to hear. Particularly coming from such a stoic person who rarely reveals himself, I knew the importance of being one of the few individuals who got to see this side of him. He expressed how much he cared, emphasizing his commitment to ensure I felt secure in our friendship. However, he also asserted that he could never give me the romantic love I desired. He acknowledged my feelings for him, stating he would be willing to support me until I moved on and that our relationship would remain platonic. In those messages, though, he avoided using the word love. Even when expressing how much I meant to him, he refrained from saying it. Despite such a clear and firm rejection, my heart continued to resist giving up. No matter how hard I tried to accept that he would never love me in that way, I simply could not. I kept replaying all the things he said and did, questioning how any of it could be merely platonic, especially considering we had known each other for less than 2 years. I recalled the times V's name emerged in conversation and the physical reaction it elicited from him. He grimaced as though he could not tolerate me discussing him. Unless I was speaking negatively about V, then he seemed pleased. He detested V despite having interacted with him only once. He once said, "I do not even want to be in the same space as him." One day, while walking through the park, I suddenly asked, "Do you know what happened with V in class today?" He stopped abruptly and his face hardened. "What happened?" I was somewhat taken aback by his reaction and said, "Why are you stopping?" He replied, "You will tell me what happened now or I am not moving." He attempted to laugh to lighten the mood, but I sensed his struggle. I explained, "He just looked really awful and it seems he is going through something." He then calmed down, responding, "Well, that is unfortunate, but it is not your problem." We resumed walking. Or consider how he can read me like a book. It is uncanny how he can look at me and instantly know how I am feeling, sometimes even through text messages. At times, it feels as if I can never conceal my feelings from him as he just knows. He would often reassure me without me needing to ask if he sensed I was anxious about something. He remarked once, "Even if we are not in constant communication, my love for you will not cease." That was the first time he uttered the word love aloud. I understood he meant it in a platonic manner, but still, my heart latched onto it, and much of my insecurity regarding our relationship diminished. Additionally, he genuinely likes my hair. I previously had very short hair. At one point when I began growing it out, he awkwardly suggested, "Maybe you should let your hair grow instead of cutting it. It is really nice and curly." I decided to let it grow and I was pleased with the outcome, choosing to maintain that style. However, if I ever mentioned the possibility of trimming my hair, he would say, "It would be strange if you cut your hair short again. Long hair suits you much better." I could decipher from his tone that he truly did not want me to shorten my hair. Typically, he avoided complimenting my appearance, yet occasionally he would forget himself and get carried away, saying, "You have really nice hair. I like your beard when it is stubbly. It suits you." He would then awkwardly fall silent and avoid looking at me. Fast forward to the night I finally decided I needed to move on from my feelings for him. My friend has this tendency, whenever he does something that upsets me, he goes above and beyond to make amends. For instance, while we were working on a project once, we were sitting side by side in chairs. At one point, my leg brushed against his. He humorously said, "Why are you making physical contact?" I shifted my leg but asked, "Did it bother you?" He replied, "No, but right now it is distracting me from focusing on the project." That night, when he arrived for our movie night, he heavily leaned against me as if to compensate for his earlier response. During the evening, we discussed his emotional vulnerability. I noted that he opened up very slowly, and he responded, "I have never opened up to anyone like I have to you." We began discussing my jealousy whenever I learned of other guys flirting with him. He noted, "You always become really angry." Then he recounted events where different males had approached him, including incidents where friends from his hometown would sit on his lap during bench presses at the gym or how they had seen him naked in the gym shower. Admittedly, these events occurred before we met and were relatively harmless, but they still hurt me. I inquired about the friend he had a crush on, asking, "Do you still have feelings for him?" He said, "What I consider feelings are much weaker than what you consider having feelings." I pressed further, "If he wanted you now, would you pursue him?" And he replied, "Do you want the truth?" I affirmed that I did. He said, "We would be friends with benefits." It felt like a knife through my heart, and I knew he could see the impact of his words. I then asked, "What about a relationship?" He responded, "No." I reminded him of that day when he asserted he would never be with me. I added, "Yet today you said if that friend asked, you would." He explained, "It is not the same. Would you be happy with casual encounters?" "No, I do not think you would. You are a romantic, and that is a fundamental part of who you are." "I am not a romantic, and I do not dwell on domestic life and growing old together. I am only 23. I want to explore more. I do not know what I want." Those friends would not mind if I told them about flirting with other people because there are no feelings involved. They would merely laugh. We attempted to return to watching the show after this exchange, but he could see I was visibly troubled. I was deeply hurt. He asked, "Do you want me to leave so you can process everything I said?" I remained silent. He added, "Perhaps this will help you stop being in love with me and shift our relationship to platonic." I replied, "You have definitively told me that you will never have those feelings for me." He said, "When we first met, I entertained the idea of a casual sexual relationship with you, but as I got to know you better, I decidedly opted against any sexual relationship. Engaging in casual encounters with someone desiring true love would be catastrophic." I thought back to when he mentioned he had never felt any spark between us nor considered me as a romantic option. I asked, "Are you saying this to comfort me?" He replied, "No, it is the truth." I queried, "Why did you contemplate that if I am not your type?" He fell silent and then stated, "You are my emotional type. That is why we are such good friends." I challenged him, "You are mistaken about yourself. You are right about most things, but you are not always correct." He smiled, saying, "That is unfortunate. I enjoy being right." I insisted, "The way you consistently stood by me despite everything, the way you stubbornly refused to give up, and the way you embraced the worst in me while still enjoying our time together, that is romantic. It is not solely about growing old around each other." He hesitated. It was the first time I saw him not firmly asserting his viewpoint. Eventually, he quietly replied, "You believe romance equates to domestic life and growing old together." I responded, "That may be the ultimate goal, but that is not my idea of romance." He fell silent once again, and I asked, "What is your ambition then?" I anticipated he would talk about career aspirations, but instead he said, "If I tell you, we will never discuss this again." I agreed. He stated, "I merely wish for evenings where I do not want to end at all." At that moment, I reached my breaking point. Under the emotional weight of the evening, I finally began to cry. Exclaimed, "No, no, please do not do that. I would never do it." I had always perceived him as a stoic, composed individual in complete control, mature and wise. I was unaware that behind his stoic facade lay deep pain. I realized that I was the only person he had shared that with. After sitting in quiet contemplation for a while, he finally began to pack up. We stood by my door and I declared, "You will change, you know. My instincts regarding people are seldom wrong. You will change." He replied, "Do not harbor false hope." I said, "I am furious with you for mentioning that friend to the extent that I want to punch you." He chuckled softly. "Most people in your position would not disclose that information, but I appreciate your honesty." I reiterated, "Yes, now please leave." He smiled and moved closer to lean against the fridge, then quietly remarked, "We are stuck in this emotional limbo because both of us are too stubborn to let go." I remained silent. He continued, "But we have a bond. I do not believe it will ever dissolve." I affirmed, "Yes." He turned to leave, but just before exiting, he glanced back at me. We stood in silence, and perhaps I imagined it, but for a brief moment I thought he wanted to kiss me. Yet he turned and commented, "It has been a long day, rest well." I do not believe there is any hope for him to ever love me in the way I desire. Therefore, I now want to move on from these feelings so that I can love him as the wonderful friend he is. However, I do not want to create distance between us to achieve that, as it would hurt both him and me. I am simply unsure how to proceed. Summary: I am in love with my best friend and both of us are male. I am gay and he is bisexual. He has been there for me during very challenging times in my life, even when I was incredibly difficult to be around, and he refused to give up on me. I confessed my feelings for him. He said he loves me, just not in the same way. Now I wish to move on from my feelings for him without having to create distance between us.